Hello, everyone, and welcome to Echo Live. This is our first fall program of the year, so happy fall, everyone. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about why it's officially fall and how that happens, but we'll also be giving a few updates about things that have happened in the news and that we can see in the nighttime sky in our virtual planetarium. So, yesterday was actually our fall equinox. And that means that we pretty much had equal amounts of daylight and nighttime. So the sun rose at about 7:20 or so here in Detroit, and it set at about 7:25 yesterday. Our equinox happens and we have equal amounts of day and night, and it marks the beginning of fall. If you're in the Detroit area, you might start to see some of our leaves changing. The further north you go, the more leaves are definitely changing. If you're new to Echo Live, go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat. And if you're one of our old friends who's been joining us since the beginning, introduce yourself in the chat as well. That's how we're going to be communicating during our program today, is using that chat feature on Facebook or YouTube, whatever streaming platform you happen to be on. So, like I said, today we are going to be talking a little bit about why fall is actually happening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my virtual planetarium with you. All right, so we have our virtual planetarium right here, and I've set the sky to our noon time approximately. That's where the sun is directly in the southern sky. Now, one of the cool things that we can do with our virtual planetarium is we can zoom out a little bit and we can actually change month by month where the sun is in the sky, or our date. So if we move forward in time to, forward in time, there we go, to December 23rd, we can see that the sun is really, really low in the sky. And if we keep moving forward in time, in June, we actually see that the sun is super high in the sky. And when we get to September and to March, the sun is at about the same spot in the sky. So that's what we call our equinox, because we have equal daytime and nighttime in our sky. All right, so we can actually go ahead and take a look at our Earth and see why we might see this happening. There we go. Gonna stop my share and we can see our Earth right here. Now here we have our Earth, and what's happening is that our Earth is tilted at 23.5 degrees. If we pretend that the sun is over here, sometimes it's tilted away from the sun, sometimes it's tilted toward the sun. Here we would have winter, here we would have summer. But when it's tilted either toward me or toward you at home, you'll actually see that the sunlight will hit right here at our equator. Now, the equator goes around the center of our planet Earth. If we go ahead and take a look at my slide that I have right here, there we go. We're able to see this in picture form. So here we would have our December solstice, where we're pointed away from the sun, so we have cooler weather. Here we're pointed toward the sun, so we have hotter weather. And right here, we're neither tilted toward nor away from the sun, so we actually have sort of that medium weather somewhere right in the middle. Now, if we take a look at our South Pole, we're actually going to see that the opposite is happening. So though we are on our way to winter right now with our September equinox or our fall equinox, the Southern Hemisphere is actually on their way to their summer. And when we have summer, the Southern Hemisphere, of course, has winter. Now, what do you think it would look like if we were at the equator? What do you think all of this would look like? Where do you think the sun would be if we were at the equator? Well, the nice thing about the virtual planetarium is that we can go basically anywhere on the Earth. So we're going to go right here to our equator, and we're going to take a look. So here we are at the equator, and the sun is actually directly above where we are on our fall equinox and our spring equinox. So when we're at the center of our Earth here on the equator, we actually see the sun going above our heads, directly above our heads. So it's a really interesting and neat place to be when we have our fall equinox. Now, I said we're going to talk about some other things that are happening in the news and talk about some of those. So let me go ahead and, again, stop my share, and I'm going to bring us to something that is really cool, that is happening, that we just found out last week. Last week, we actually found out that there's something really cool in the atmosphere of Venus. We found something called phosphine. Now, phosphine is really interesting because phosphine is usually a byproduct of living things. For example, we actually find a lot of phosphine in penguin poop. And that's because it goes through their digestive system and they create that phosphine as it goes through their system. So we're finding phosphine in Venus's atmosphere, but it's produced by life, at least on the Earth. So this is puzzling scientists. Was this phosphine created by life? Is it being created by life right now, or was it created by life in the past? This phosphine could also be produced by something that we have no idea what's going on. But we are actually planning to send spacecraft to Venus in the future to look below the surface. So as we have talked about on Echo Live in the past, Venus has really, really thick clouds. And those really, really thick clouds are made mostly out of let's see, they have some carbon dioxide, they have some sulfuric acid, just really, really thick clouds that we can't actually see through. So this is one of the spacecraft that we're hoping to be able to send to the planet Venus in the future to be able to look at the surface from the outside, from the orbit around it. Now, we're also able to see some really interesting things up in the nighttime sky right now. So let's go ahead and change on over to our virtual planetarium, and we're going to head back to Detroit. Let's see. There we are. Okay, so we are back in the city or in the area of Detroit. Obviously not the city of Detroit because we have some grass and everything around us and we're really actually able to see the nighttime sky. But if we go ahead and change this to our nighttime sky by moving forward in time, we're going to be able to see some really interesting things up in our nighttime sky right now. I mentioned the planet Venus having phosphine around it. And if we zoom in to Venus, we'll get a closer look at what it looks like right now. So if you go outside shortly after sunset at about 10:19 or so, you'll actually still be able to see Venus above our horizon. You'll be able to see it a little bit earlier than that as well, but because it doesn't get dark until a little bit later, you won't really be able to see it too well until a little bit later in the night. So here we have Venus, and like I said, super, super thick atmosphere around it. And that thick atmosphere actually, like I said, made mostly out of carbon dioxide and allows the planet Venus to get up to 900 degrees Fahrenheit. So Venus up in our skies right now is actually going to be really, really, really bright. I've actually had a lot of phone calls in the last couple of weeks of people asking if we are able to see or what that bright thing that we can see in our sky is, and it definitely is the planet Venus. So like I said, if you go a little bit earlier than 8:16, you'll be able to see it up in the sky, but much earlier than that, and you're going to start to have to battle with the sun. So you'll be able to see that in our western sky as the sun sets. So go outside and try and find the planet Venus. A couple other things that we have up in our nighttime sky right now are actually over here in our eastern sky. So if we follow sort of an arc across the sky, we're going to follow something that we call the ecliptic. The ecliptic is where we're able to see all of our, oh, that's super interesting. Thank you, Evan from Texas. Let me see sort of what's going on with that. That has never happened before. Let's see. Sharing screen. Controls. Well, this is interesting and has never happened before. Oh, we just saw a night sky. Let's go back to it. All right. Let's see if we're able to see it now. All right, so up in our sky in the southwest, that's where we're going to be able to see Venus. Evan from Texas, let me know, are you able to see Venus now? All right, so let's go ahead and zoom on into Venus so that we can take a look at it and get a wonderful view of that planet. You can see it a little bit. All right. My virtual planetarium is being a little bit tricky today. It does that sometimes. All right, so we're able to see Venus now up in our sky. But we're not going to be able to get a close-up look at it, unfortunately, because my virtual planetarium right now is being a little bit tricky. So we have Venus up in our sky right over here. And then we have Saturn and Jupiter up in our sky as well. These are really interesting objects to look at with a pair of binoculars if you get a chance, because when you look at a planet with a pair of binoculars, it looks like a floating sphere or ball out in space, where stars look like pinpoints of light. Saturn actually looks like a floating football out in space because of the rings around it. Now, if we move forward in time just a little bit longer, we're going to be able to see a couple of really interesting things up in our sky. If we look up into our sky, let's see if it changes now, we're able to see our moon right next to what is the planet Uranus. So if I zoom on in here, you're actually able to see Uranus with a small telescope. Here we go. Okay. All right, so my virtual planetarium is giving me a little bit of trouble today, but I'm figuring out a way around it. So we're able to see the moon and Uranus up in our sky as well. Now, one thing that we haven't talked about yet is we haven't really talked any about our fall constellations. Now, we haven't really talked a little bit about our fall constellations because, well, we're really not far enough into fall to be able to see them really clearly yet. But we should be able to start seeing a few of them, especially if we look to the direction north. So if we look to the direction north, we're going to be able to see some of our fall constellations. So for example, when we look up in this part of the sky, we are able to see, let's see, here we have the Big Dipper, draw a line up and over to this constellation right over here called Cephus, the King. And then if we look right down over here, we're going to see Cassiopeia, the Queen. So we have Cassiopeia, the Queen, and King Cephus up in our sky right now. So Cephus, the King, is right over here. It's these 4 stars along with this little triangle on top. And Cassiopeia, the Queen, looks like a M or a W up in the sky. So if we actually go ahead and draw the art, we're able to see our King Cephus right here and our Queen Cassiopeia right there. Let me try and go out of full screen mode and see if this helps a little bit. All right. So Queen Cassiopeia and King Cephus actually had a daughter, and that daughter's name was Andromeda. Andromeda is up in the sky right over here. They had a daughter named Andromeda. Now, there's a story to go along with these constellations as well. There we go. We're able to see it a lot better now. There's a story to go along with these constellations that we have up in our nighttime sky. A long time ago, the Queen Cassiopeia thought that she was the most beautiful person ever. She thought that she was more beautiful than the gods and goddesses. Well, that kind of made them angry. So Poseidon, the king of the sea, decided to send a sea monster to attack and destroy the kingdom. Not wanting this to happen, King Cephus went to the oracle and he asked the oracle, "How do I stop Cetus the sea monster?" And the oracle said, being the all-knowing person that the oracle is, "Well, you could sacrifice your daughter Andromeda." So being very good kings and queens and not so good parents, they're like, okay. They tied her out to the rocks. Just as the sea monster was coming in to attack and eat Andromeda, our friend Perseus just happened to be flying through. There we go, there's Perseus. Just happened to be flying through with the head of Medusa wearing the shoes from Mercury. or from, yeah, I don't quite remember which is the Greek equivalent of that, but here we have Perseus, the hero, came in and saved Andromeda, the princess, and they lived happily ever after. And he used this head of Medusa to actually turn the sea monster into stone. So the sea monster made a very good sort of made a very good statue in the middle of the kingdom. All right. So I actually brought up, oh, thank you, Evan from Texas. You are correct. The Greek equivalent is Hermes. That's right. You guys are Greek, right? So you definitely know those ancient Greek gods. So we also have another constellation that I brought up kind of accidentally, but we're going to get rid of all of them except for this one. Oops. And this is Pegasus, the flying horse. Pegasus, the flying horse, is flying with only his front half and upside down. Pegasus, the flying horse, is an interesting constellation, as is Andromeda, the princess. But these two constellations can actually help you find one of my favorite deep sky objects to be able to find, especially this time of year. As the temperatures start to get colder and the leaves start to change, the skies actually get crisper as we continue to start to get colder. The best time of year to go out stargazing is in the dead of winter, the middle of winter, because the atmosphere is really calm that time of the year. So as we start to get colder, everything starts to get a little bit crisper and some of it gets a little easier to see. Now, if you look up into the sky, in our eastern sky right now, a little bit further up than the moon, we are going to see right here 4 stars. Now, when we draw lines between those stars, we see a square. And this is sometimes known as the Great Square of Pegasus. Great Square of Pegasus. So that Great Square of Pegasus, sometimes you can think of as a baseball diamond. So here we have home base, first, second, third, fourth, home base, first, second, and third. I know how to play baseball. And in the outfield are the All-Stars. All right, I know, terrible, right? So here we have the Great Square of Pegasus, which actually helps us find Andromeda the princess. Now, when we find Andromeda the princess up in our sky, it is very helpful to look actually right here in her armpit. So sometimes people draw Andromeda with another side right over here. And if we look in her armpit right here, we're going to see a really cool object. We're actually going to see the Andromeda Galaxy. The Andromeda Galaxy is visible with the unaided eye. So if you are far away from city lights and you have nice clear skies, you'll be able to see that Andromeda Galaxy, but you might have to use something that we call averted vision. So sometimes that can be kind of hard to see because it's really, really faint. So what you can do is use the corner of your eye to be able to see it. So if you, for example, look right down over here at this star, you're actually able to see the galaxy much, much better. Now, look over down here by Uranus, we're able to see one more thing. We're able to see Mars. Now, Mars is a very bright red object right now in our eastern sky. So it's going to be visible in the eastern sky. I would love for you to go outside and try and take a look at it. It's really bright right now. It's actually fairly close to us, at least when we're talking about our orbits. And since it's pretty close to us, it'll seem much, much brighter up in the sky. It's still not quite as bright as Venus, still not quite as bright as Jupiter, but it is going to be bright red in the sky. I actually went outside the other day and I looked up when I was taking my dog out and I went, wow, that's really bright and it's really red. So even if you live in the city, you might be able to see Mars. So I can see it from my apartment building downtown. Most different places you'll actually be able to see it right now, especially because it's so bright in our sky. So it rises right around 9 o'clock in the eastern sky. So go outside and try and take a look. Mars is also a really cool one to look at with a pair of binoculars, because sometimes if you look carefully enough, especially with it being so close right now, you might actually be able to see the polar caps at the top and at the bottom. So that's pretty much it for what you can see up in our nighttime sky right now. We'll start to go over some of our other constellations that we have up in the sky as well as we move towards winter and fall. We'll start talking about more of the constellations that are up there. So if we don't, they'll take this time now to ask if anybody has any questions for me. And this also gives us a great opportunity to be able to thank our sponsors. So we'll thank our sponsors, Ford and Denso, for allowing us to be able to do these programs. We have changed the date and time that we're doing them. So for those of you that joined us today, thank you and hello. Our fall schedule are now Wednesdays, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. So you can check us out. And so we'll have all of our programs now through the fall at 2:30 Eastern time. Not seeing any questions coming through. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We're going to start to get really into the swing of these Wednesday schedules, but there's something really cool happening actually this weekend. So if you're a space fanatic, you might be interested in what we're doing this weekend. We are participating in something called Astronomy at the Beach. Now, Astronomy at the Beach has been an event that we have participated here at the Science Center for quite a while now. We've participated at this event, and we usually have it at either Kent Lake or Kensington Metro Park. But unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we're not able to have this program in person. So instead, we are going to be participating in a virtual program, and I've gone ahead and added to the chat the URL. So there will be programs going on Friday and Saturday of this week, and those programs will be happening basically throughout the these programs will be happening basically throughout our sort of the time. They start at about 3 p.m. if you want to see some of the solar viewing, and then they also have some programs that are pre-recorded on their website. So we'll be doing a program. Thank you, Evan from Texas. Yes, you meant Aries, not Hermes. Excellent. And we're going to be doing some programs with them. We'll be doing our amazing astronomy and fantastic physics program on Friday night at 6 o'clock p.m. And then on Saturday night at 7 o'clock p.m., we'll be doing our virtual planetarium program. We might go a little bit more in depth for that one. We'll actually be taking a look at what's up in the nighttime sky right now and getting a really close in-depth look at some of the planets in our solar system. So definitely check out our virtual astronomy at the beach. The schedule is on our on the website that I just put in the chat. And Becky West, you had a really weird thought about the Earth, and I love this thought. The Earth is in space, and we live on the Earth, so we're basically living in space. Exactly. I love thinking of the Earth as basically a giant spaceship that we ride and live on as it goes throughout space. I love that thought. So again, our programs will be on 2:30 Eastern on Wednesdays, so come and check us out. And I hope to see everybody back either this weekend or we hope to see you back next week. Thanks.